How we doing? How we doing? This is Destination Denver, Colorado. And as we look at May 2026, the housing market, over the last year, Denver's market has had a disconnect. Buyers were showing up, they were writing offers, but they keep backing out before the deal actually closed. So you have pending sales going up and closings for whatever reason wouldn't follow. Then March happened, and for the first time in quite a while, you started to see pending sales and closings starting to line up side by side. But before you celebrate, there are things happening behind the scenes that are quietly changing what it actually costs to own a home in Denver. And absolutely nobody is talking about them enough. So today, what happened in the Denver market? What a war 7,000 miles away is doing to your mortgage rate, and the 3 hidden costs that could catch you off guard if you're not paying attention. And we're starting right now. All right, this is Destination Denver, Colorado. I am your host, Jimmy Everett. Listen, there's 2 things we do here. One, we talk all things eating, living, breathing, experiencing the Denver Metro and Colorado Front Range. And as a licensed mortgage broker covering the entire state of Colorado, I'm helping people like you move here each and every day. So if I could ever be of assistance, my number and email on the screen, please do not hesitate to reach out. Now that we're done with that fun-filled stuff, let's get into it. So let's start with where Denver sits on the national page, because to really understand what is happening locally, we need to understand what is happening nationally. So the national market is really splitting into 2. You've got these completely different realities depending on where you look. From a national price standpoint, prices are up roughly 0.5% year after year. It's essentially flat if you talk about inflation. 28 out of 53 of the largest metros actually saw a price drop over the last 12 months. Every major market in Florida, California, Texas, all down. Cape Coral down almost 10%. Austin, Tampa, Miami, all in the red over the last 12 months. Meanwhile, the Rust Belt is surging. Areas like Kansas City up nearly 9%, Cleveland 6%, Pittsburgh 6%, Chicago and Philadelphia both up 4% year over year. The boring cities from 5 or 6 years ago are now the hottest cities to move to in the United States. And meanwhile, Denver sits right in the middle of those. Not crashing, not surging, just kind of waiting for its opportunity. Denver is really sitting in this lane of stability where prices haven't gone up much, they certainly haven't decreased much. We're just kind of waiting for this slow motion correction to take place. And I will say before I move on, I'm very bullish about that stability. I think that speaks very highly for how healthy the Denver market is. That we haven't seen prices jump by any means, but we have not seen them correct lower either. Now, the second part of all of this, and obviously something that has been top of the headlines for the last 2 months, is the war in the Middle East, 7,000 miles away, and how that is impacting. So we have been watching rates bounce all over the place since that began. Let's take a quick look back. February 26th, the average 30-year mortgage hits an average of 5.98%. That was the lowest rate we had seen since 2022. Then 2 days later, US and Israel begin bombing, different strikes on Iran, and rates start to shift. In the span of just a couple weeks, oil surges past $105 a barrel. Higher oil means higher costs for everything, which means inflation fears begin roaring back. Investors panic. They start selling bonds. When bonds sell off, we know that yields go up. Mortgage rates always follow 10-year treasuries. And so rates went from 5.98% to 6.46% in roughly 5 weeks. And that is the highest interest rates we had seen at the time in about 7 months. Now, as of the making of this video, rates had settled back down to about 6.23%. But, and listen, I'm not naive. I'm a military veteran. I understand there are bigger things at stake. Strictly talking about mortgage rates, the market was really starting to gain momentum as rates got better. And as people saw that 5.98 number, there was a lot of excitement. So a lot of that momentum has been quelled by this, and there's still a ton of uncertainty. And there's many, analysts that say if this conflict had not occurred, we'd still have rates below 6%. Again, do I think that's the priority? No, but it's important for people to know. Now, because of this news, there were certain downgrades. The Mortgage Bankers Association downgraded their 2026 sales forecast from about 8% of an increase down to 5%. And again, that's directly because of this rate shock. The Fed, by most people's standards, are expected to hold steady throughout the year. Again, there's a lot of unknowns. Even with new leadership coming in as soon as this month, it is likely that the Fed will hold steady while a lot of these things get sorted out. And it's important to know why a lot of people are waiting for 5% interest rates. a lot of quote unquote experts are saying be prepared for 6%. That includes Fannie Mae, MBA, JP Morgan. They all say low to mid sixes for the foreseeable future. So, the entire plan for the vast majority of people needs to center around that reality. Now, what did March, and soon you'll get data from April, tell us about this current housing market in Denver? Well, first we saw that pending sales were about 31% higher month over month, and closed sales followed at about 29%. Why is this important? As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, we had a lot of people who would get under contract. Buyers would get under contract on homes, and then they would terminate for various reasons. They would terminate for loan issues, they would terminate for inspection issues. Basically, if the wind blew a certain direction, they would decide to cancel the contract. And that is not very healthy for the market. So March was a nice surprise for a lot of people because not only did pending sales increase, but the amount of people that actually closed on those homes held steady. Both numbers went up. And this was broad. This wasn't based on isolated numbers. So it wasn't just single family homes. It wasn't just townhomes or condos. All types of properties saw a dramatic increase in how many of them were getting under contract and how many of them were closing. Now, for the sake of numbers, the median price in the month of March was sitting at about $590,000. That was up about 10 grand from the year before. New inventory came up almost 20% from February. Again, a nice sign because rates were moving in a good direction. There was a lot of positive momentum in the market at that time. Now, the truth was, even looking at then, the data was still lagging from 2025. Closed sales were down about 5% year over year. And one strong month did not correct for all of that. And so as we got into April, you saw nearly 3 months of inventory for single family homes, which is, again, the healthiest that we've seen in some time. We always point back during the pandemic, and during that period of time, the inventory would be about a half a month, 2 weeks to maybe 4 weeks. So to see 3 months was very solid. Condos and townhomes, you had about 6 months of inventory, which again is a number that the real estate industry loves. Essentially means that if no homes get sold, you have about 6 months before you run out of houses to sell. And when we talk about that 3 month to 6 month spread, as though I can make 6 months out of this hand, between condo and single family, that gives you an indicator of how vastly different those two markets are. The fact that single family homes were still highly desirable, and if people could afford them and they were priced right, they were going, whereas the condo market and townhomes continue, especially condos, continue to be challenging for a variety of issues. Now, behind the scenes of all of this was this negotiation that no one sees unless you're in the industry, and that was the fact that the list to sales price was 99% roughly. What that means is that if a home was for sale for $100, in reality it was selling for $99. That may not sound like much, but when it's extrapolated a bit, it is significant. The other number that a lot of people don't see in that is that roughly 63%, basically 2 out of 3 homes that got sold had some level of seller concessions. That meant that there was money that the sellers didn't pocket from that sales price. That was money that actually went to the buyers to lower their interest rate, to cover closing costs, and that's not shown in a sales price. So if somebody sold their home for $500,000 and they gave you $10,000 in concessions, the actual sales price in all reality is $490, but it's gonna still say $500 to the general population. And sellers are protecting this headline price. Nobody wants to be the house that sold below asking. Nobody wants to be the house that wrecks the neighborhood for selling below price. And that's why you don't see that on the headline. That is a behind the scenes factor. So the key takeaway from that is if you're looking to buy a house in Denver right now, you're not asking to lower the price all the time. You're asking for a buy down, you're asking for a credit. And if you're not doing that, you are leaving money on the table. Sellers across from you are probably already willing to do it. They've had conversations, they've seen other people have to. It's a situation where sellers are having to give in to buyers in order to sell their homes. Now, there are 3 costs right now to buying a home that we really need to talk about. And I could say that nobody is warning you about. I think people are warning you. There just isn't quite enough conversation about it yet. The first and foremost is insurance. So Colorado is right now the 4th highest in the nation for insurance premiums. The average is about $4,600 a year. That's $383 a month added to your housing costs for the average. premiums in Colorado are up 65% in just the last 5 years. Giving you kind of an example of what I'm experiencing here, helping some clients in Idaho to buy a house, a premium here averaging $383 a month. They got a policy in Idaho for about $125 a month. So this huge gap in insurance. Now, granted, there's risk factors at play here, but insurance is massive. Why is that occurring? Well, first and foremost, it's not just wildlife fires driving most of the increase, it's actually hail. Along with the Front Range, hail accounts for about 50% of your premium. Even mountain counties like Summit largely get hail, and they're paying about 35% of that premium towards hail. It is a big problem here in Denver from an insurance standpoint. Now, the local government here in Colorado trying to work on some of these things. Obviously, this is a big problem for Colorado. So Governor Polis recently announced a plan to cut premiums by about $800 a year through hail-resistant roof grants, but he's term limited. So that promise falls on the next governor. I know that's probably stunning to hear any politician, not getting necessarily political, but politicians saying something's going to happen and it has to happen by the person who comes after them doesn't always have the highest success rate. Hidden cost number 2, and this one really, is news, but it's not news yet, and that is the drought that Colorado is facing right now, especially the Colorado Front Range. So there has been a drought announced in Colorado, in the Denver metro area as of March 25th. This is our first since 2013. It's actually our 5th since the year 2000. And the fact is our snowpack was historically low. The Colorado River Basin, 55% of where it normally should be. That is the worst on record for Colorado. That's bad. Worst on record, pretty bad. South Platte, 42% of normal. Also worst on record. Denver Water says they were 7 to 8 feet of snow short of what we need. The snowpack, it just didn't happen. It did not snow this winter. What it means is that right now we're on a mandatory 2-day per week watering cycle. There's drought pricing, surcharges. That's going to start in May on your water bill. That's obviously going to add cost to a lot of people. And if things don't improve, expect these stricter restrictions to come. Like at a certain point, we don't have enough water. They have to figure it out, and it's going to mean people don't use water. Just as an example, right now, if you go to a Denver restaurant to have dinner, you have to ask for water. They will provide it, but if you don't ask for water, they will not bring it to your table. They're doing everything they can to conserve. And I mean, for my example locally, if you're living in Lakewood, it's already real for us. Consolidated Mutual has restrictions on top of Denver's water. Aurora, Highlands Ranch, Golden, all under stage 1 restrictions. So it's metro-wide. And the Denver Metro Association of Realtors already flagged this locally. Water is becoming a real market story here. It impacts HOA budgets for common area landscaping. It impacts your water bill. And if your relocating picture includes these lush green lawns, that could be a pretty big problem. And then the third cost is the fact of the hidden cost, or not so hidden cost, of tariffs increasing the price of construction. So tariffs have added roughly $9,200 to the cost of a new home in Denver. Nationally, the National Association of Home Builders puts it at about $10,900. Over 60% of builders are reporting higher costs. Those are just the facts. Big ticket materials, they're getting hit. Steel's at a 50% tariff. Aluminum for windows, fixtures, Canadian softwood lumber, layered duties, HVAC systems, appliances with Chinese manufacturing exposure. You name it, it costs more now. That cost is being passed along, and this is what we're getting hit for. And it's at a certain point, builders can only pass on so much. They have to cut into their own numbers, but eventually that number is going to get passed along to the consumer. So this is quietly, in some areas, pushing buyers into existing homes. So when the gap between a resale home and a comparable new build widens by, say, 10 to 15 grand, the math starts to push towards existing homes. Now, one of the things that builders have really had an advantage on compared to existing homes was providing massive incentives to lower your interest rate, incentives to finish a basement, a lot of different factors. Some of them still do, and especially in these more desirable areas. But elsewhere, builders only have so much margin. They have to build, if they have to build a house, there's so many houses they're going to build, they have to sell them at a certain price, and the higher their price goes, the higher price you're going to pay. So if this were to continue, there's some analysis that suggests that 450,000 fewer homes would be built nationally through 2030 because of the tariff impact. Fewer new homes means a larger shortage as we continue to move into the future. So what is, again, as we talk about May of 2026 in Denver, what is the real cost of home ownership? Well, I mean, nobody really does this, so let me stack it up. When you look at a home listed at $590,000, right at that current median price, most people think about the mortgage payment, they stop there. Well, here's what you actually need to consider. You need to think about that $383 a month average homeowner's insurance and climbing. You need to think about property taxes, HOA dues, if that's applicable. You need to think about droughts, surcharges on water, metro district fees if you're moving into a new area. I'm not telling you this to scare you. I'm telling you this so you know the full price before you make a move. And I've been getting a lot of conversations, having a lot of conversations with Texas relocators, and using you folks as an example. Colorado's effective property tax rate is significantly lower than Texas. That savings will often offset some of these increases we're talking about, but it at the same time doesn't necessarily save you as much money as you might expect. You're not paying that higher property tax, but you're paying it in different ways, whether that is in taxes, metro districts, which is commonly newer areas, or with HOAs. So why does Denver make sense? Listen, you probably watched this video and you're like, well, this guy's trying to talk me out of moving to Denver. Why would Destination Denver, Colorado talk me out of it? The fact is, I want to make sure that if you make a move here, you do so with your eyes wide open. Denver didn't crash. It's not going to crash. We've already talked about that. Austin, Miami, Tampa Bay, Cape Coral, they're all down. Meanwhile, Denver's median home price is held in a narrow $580,000 to $615,000 band over the last 12 months. And again, I'm using a pretty wide range there, but it's held steady over the last year or two, while a lot of these other markets are moving. That, again, that's not a high market, that is a solid floor. And when you talk about volatility, sometimes you want to know that you're not going to go below a certain threshold, and Denver really has that in place. Another positive, again, goes to the fact that buyers have a lot of leverage. There are 13,400 homes active as of the making of this video. Nearly 2/3 of sellers are offering concessions. You have time to make a decision. You have time to negotiate. You have time to work through inspection. Every single client I'm working with right now is winning negotiations that they got their teeth kicked in on 2 or 3 years ago. So for the people who can make it happen, it's a phenomenal opportunity. And as I mentioned a lot of times, Denver's economy continues to be versatile. You've got aerospace, tech, healthcare, energy, federal government, higher education. We're not a one-trick pony. We're not a one-industry town. There's a lot of versatility that, again, solidifies that floor we've talked about. And, quality of life compared to cost of living. We talk about this all the time with folks. It's still favorable compared to the coast. And that gap is actually widening. That the quality of life here, combined with that cost of living, is really in line where you get to some of these really cool coastal towns that people want to live in. And yeah, your quality of life is great, but man, that cost of living is sky high. So where do we stand? As I said, in March, a lot of buyers woke up. In April, those rains got pulled back quite a bit because of all this, this fluctuation, all this volatility with the Middle East and what have you. And now again, that slow stability. The full cost of home ownership is higher than the sticker price. We know that. We know that people are still moving to Colorado. We know that some people are still taking advantage of the market when opportunities present themselves. And listen, we know that the people who continue to wait for a perfect opportunity are continuing to wait. And there's nothing wrong with that. At the end of the day, it's about your timing, your opportunity, what works best for you. Thinking about making a move to Colorado, that's what I'm here for all day, and that's why I'd love to have a conversation anytime. My name and number on the screen. Just know that I'm always here to help if and when I can. In the meantime, this is Destination Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, Jimmy Everett. That was the Denver housing market update for May 2026. Till I see you next time, peace.